Good now, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good now, whatever you are, wherever you are. This is Daryl as a service with regarding Office 365 and the Message Center. The week that was, changing that up a bit. I used to refer to it as the date of Friday, when the weekend. So here I am on my Saturday, the US is on their Friday and finishing things off. I'm going to start referring to the shows with the week beginning as the date. So that's why I've called it, I think it was the 17th. It's a week of the 17th of July, or July 17th. So hopefully that doesn't confuse you, but going forward it just makes more sense to refer to the rest of the week that way. So you're joining me here in the southern hemisphere. It is pouring down with rain, so if you hear a little background there on my iron roof, then hopefully this makes you feel a little more cozy in the place of the world wherever you are. But I'm playing around a little bit with my new setup for streaming. Before this I was really pushing my Surface Pro 4, which was about 2 years old. It was an i5. I was lucky enough to get the 16 gig model, 256 gigs of space. That's not so important, but the issue was that the harder you pushed it, the harder the fans go, and it seems that there is a fault with the Surface when you push it too hard for too long. Funny enough, that the display starts to get some kind of weird shaking going on that really affects visibility. So yeah, I'm going to be swapping that out for a warranty, and I've got something more appropriate for streaming. So I'm using a Dell XPS 15, i7, 4 cores, tons of RAM, tons of space, and very grateful for Adopt and Embrace setting me up with this machine so I can get my job done and also stream hopefully in better quality with less drop frames and the like. So I would take you on a tour, but I'll perhaps just share or reshare the Periscope that I did last night after I set this all up and tried it out. On with the Office 365 Message Center. So I've seen 4 messages this week, and one of them seems to be a repeat. I've seen this a couple of times now where it's exactly the same message, and it's almost like it gets bumped up the list, in the sense that, hey, you haven't read this, or I don't think it's about reading, but rather, hey, we still think this is important. We don't think from our telemetry that enough people have read this. So I'll call that out as we go through the small list today. So there's not too much really to look at, but it's certainly worth being aware of what's going on and always checking this Message Center. And I'll just flick over to sharing my screen now, because I do want to show you a little bit of what I've been playing with too. Let's see if this has worked. Here's our Message Center, but just before I go a bit too much further, I was playing around with our with the communication site that we have with SharePoint Online now. I was looking to try and find a way to embed a live stream video, maybe in the Hero web part. Not really capable. You can choose to put a picture there, link off to something. You've got coloured squares, but there's no embed capability at this stage. So what I have done is just embedded the video here. So the thinking around this, of course, is that if you're using the likes of a okay, that's also muted, good. If you're using the likes of something like a town hall, and you're wanting to embed and sort of share that and communicate that across the rest of the organisation, you might have your streamed video sitting in the home page of the communication site. You could have Yammer embedded there to have your discussion and content. A little bit of inception going on, sorry about that. But the capabilities, right? So this is another possibility that you could use your communication site with. There's tons of possibilities there. So let's move away from that. We'll get on back to our Message Center. So a few messages, as I said. Stay informed, stay informed, stay informed, stay informed. Not a lot more, except as we go through from the bottom. First one that we're looking at is an update to the lists and libraries in SharePoint, and we've gradually seen the modern sites getting more and more features being modernized, right? So we have the modernized sites. We still at this stage have a a single layout for our sites, aside from the communication site. What we have is our modern lists and modern libraries, and we've had a few ways of being able to add different columns directly from a modern list or library. So now what's going to be rolled out is a few more choices that we can add on the fly while we're in a list or library. So if we go into, of course it's rolling out just gradually, so the key pieces of information here are that it's going to be rolled out gradually over the next few days and hopefully completed within the next few months. So again, it's one of those timelines where people will be saying, I want to see it, but they're not seeing it yet because it's gradually shared out over the world. So patience. This is the cloud. Sometimes it'll be there on the day of the announcement, and sometimes it'll gradually get to you. So the additional information takes us through to a post within the Microsoft Tech community. Good place there, and I still recommend that you do get into the different communities, such as the SharePoint community, the Teams community, the 365 community, that sort of thing, and look specifically for the blog areas. At the moment, there isn't an easy way to say, I want to get a push whenever there's a new blog. So I've set up an IFTT. I haven't used Flow, but I've got it to send a direct message to my Twitter so that I know when a post has been created in the SharePoint blog. Back to the blog itself and the content. The list columns, rather the columns that have been added, we have a few more choices. We have the choice type column, hyperlinks, picture, single line of text, and multiple lines of text. So I will show you what I currently have. Here's a document library, and most of us probably have this now too. We do have, well, I've already got single line and multiple line. I haven't yet got things like choice or the picture field or hyperlink within the modern experience. But if I want to be able to add this to a list or library, then I can click through to more, and I'll be able to do that in the classic experience, where I can set up my column and I can go further and start to choose things like manage metadata and site columns and the like. So that's cool. That means that that's been added, and we will see I guess a more user-friendly experience of wanting to add a column and capturing some what the information. I think I'll just close that. Sorry you don't have access to the page that you just had access to. Awesome. So that's the announcement. There's a good discussion here too. Oops, no, that one's related to another announcement. Let's get back to our Msg Center. So yeah, that's not really a lot to be excited about for me, in my personal opinion. It's great that I can add some additional column types on the fly. But as we know, those who are into working with SharePoint, designing our lists and libraries, we do really need to give a bit more thought rather than just dropping in a column that says please enter any single line of text or large line of text, or please choose from the following choices. If we're smart, we're going to be making another list to manage those choices or manage the trees, so that we can capture that information, use it centrally, maybe use it in a site column, and rather than duplicating the effort. So yeah, alright, things are becoming more modernized. Cool. Alright, moving a bit further on up in the list, Office 365 group owners. This announcement is about increasing the number of owners that you can have for an Office 365 group. This is good. All right, I think so. Beforehand or currently, if this feature hasn't been rolled out to you yet, we had a limit of 10 owners, and that means that owners, of course, they can do more than members in a group. They can adjust the things about a group. They can change the description. They can they add? I think it's owners that can add connectors, but not members. The likes of those sorts of things. So a group only had 10 owners, and the limiting factor around that was if you had a really large Office 365 group and you were, I guess, using it for multiple purposes, then you might need to have more than 10 owners. Now I'm thinking, and I'm just trying to think this out loud, of course, that when you're creating a Microsoft team, that is of course an Office 365 group. You have members and owners in a group, in a team as well, and that's leveraging the ownership value of a Microsoft team. So think of the Microsoft team that, who was it that, thank you for that password reminder. When we're talking to the team's team, who was it, sorry? It was Dan Stevenson. Yeah, and he was telling us about how the Skype for Business team had one Microsoft team, and they were using multiple channels for the different work groups within that team. So it kind of had this open feel about it, because you belong to the team, but you could also jump across and be part of different pieces of work or conversations within the different channels. Now, if you wanted to allow more than 10 people to manage that team and be able to add things to, let's say, connectors into the channels or those sorts of things, then you were limited to 10 owners. But now you have 100. Now, I guess the other side to this too is that you might belong to an organization where it's very democratic, and we want all members to be owners because so yeah, that means that you can increase that to 100. Haven't really given too much thought about this announcement, but I'm sure there are other implications that will make it easier for the larger organizations to manage and to own groups. So I guess that's good news. Now, the announcement that I talked about, which appears to be a repeat and sort of a way of like, hey, have a look at this again, it's still important, or we want people to know about this. We looked at this last week. So the Skype for Business Call Analytics preview. This is for organizations that are using Skype for Business Online for their PSTN, perhaps for conferencing as well, and they want to be able to measure call quality. And because it's a preview, because I don't have access to this feature, I've got to rely on other people's experiences and opinions. And again, this is where I dive into the Microsoft Tech community to have a look at some of those discussions. So I had a look at the original post, which we get taken through to when we have a look at the additional information. And thankfully, we've got an active Stephen Collier, who, and he's a very active person in the community, and he was telling about his experiences. So the good thing about this is that, for his example, you had a person who was joining a conference call, but the call quality was pretty average. And using the analytics from this new capability in the preview, he was able to determine that the person who had poor call quality was connected to the guest wireless network in their organization. And he just was able to say, look, disconnect from the wireless that you're connecting to now and reconnect to the corporate wireless, because that's far better, and we've got more bandwidth provisioned, and you'll have a better experience. And that solved the problem. So that's the level of information that you can pair up with what you know about your network and the call quality, and perhaps trace some of the things in there to help you get a better experience for your users who are using Skype for Business. So there was a couple of other questions that people had asked within the thread. I should probably blow this up so it's a bit easier to see. Yeah, there's a couple of good things in here about it. Where are we? I do think like Stephen's got a lot of good insights about how he was using it in a practical sense. There was one guy here, Earl, who was interested in, okay, well, Steve, if you used it this way, then would there be a way for us to determine if it was some problem on the if someone was having poor quality at home on their Wi-Fi network? And of course, you know, you probably don't get a lot of visibility about people's home networks, but the call quality tool apparently does a lot of measuring and comparison from the client's point of view. So even if someone is at home on mobile bandwidth or something along those lines, that you can get some information about that and still troubleshoot to an extent if people are outside your corporate network. So this is good, and I'd like to perhaps talk to others that have had that experience. And I'm also looking for Microsoft mechanics. Microsoft Mechanics, the YouTube video channel, to perhaps do a demonstration and get it up there so we can have a look for those of us who haven't got access to this yet, or those of us who are still waiting for PSTN capabilities to come down to our country. New Zealand? Anyway, I think that's all the rest of the world are asking in that sense too. They're when are we going to get it down in our country? And just to again encourage a bit of patience, it is down to forming partnerships and getting across legislation and doing it all properly within each country. So it's certainly not a quick process, and it's not necessarily slowed down by Microsoft. It's around trying to strike up those agreements and fitting with legislation. So we wait. And last announcement, again, no, either this is a repeat or they're still doing maintenance on Yammer databases for my tenants, but it looks like there's going to be another bit of downtime as they're bringing more and more content into the Azure data centers and away from wherever the databases were beforehand. And I think, and I'm hoping that this also means that it becomes, Yammer's becoming more of a data sovereignty thing where my databases are going to be hosted out of the Australian data centers. So now it's in my region rather than it all being based out of the US, and that'll be a lot of peace of mind for countries where you've got to have data sovereignty, or companies that are really find that a huge importance to them to have that information staying in country. So I guess this is another move to that. And look, there's no action required. Nothing to do. So that's it for this week in terms of announcements. I've got a couple of ideas around how I'd like to change this up a bit, and it's part of the reason why I want to change the way I refer to the dates for regarding Office 365's Message Center, referring to it as the beginning of the week. In other words, week beginning July 17. I want to be able to try and either on my Friday, which is US Thursday, or maybe line it up a little earlier on my Saturday morning so it's still in the middle of Friday for some people, to be able to talk about these sorts of announcements in the Message Center and discuss them with people. So we've got a team in the Regarding Office 365 publication who write, some more active than others, come on people, but I'm looking to maybe just put it out there, half an hour to an hour before I do the show. Does anyone want to jump on and have a talk about some of these announcements? Now, you might not be as aware of the announcements, but everyone's going to have an opinion about what's been announced, and they'll also have an opinion about other things that have been released or things that have happened within Office 365. So if you like this idea, let me know in the comments on the video. And we'll try and mix this up a bit, and rather than it being a monologue dialogue, and trying to make it a bit more exciting. You'll also notice this week I pushed it to YouTube Live first. Just sort of to and fro a bit still between, is Facebook Live the right place, is YouTube the right place? Facebook Live, it's good, we've got some following going on there, and we can say, hey, I'm going to be doing a live broadcast and schedule it. The conversation experience is really cool, but I'm still trying to sort of bolster that audience as well on the YouTube side, in terms of making it more accessible to people. So yeah, get some thoughts around that. But that was the Office 365 Message Center the week that was, and we're looking to, where's our feature here? Come on. That's funny. What have I done? What I'm trying to do, people, is let's open up an announcement. Oh wow. We'll refresh this. I like to try and dismiss the messages as I've dealt with them, and that's kind of odd, right? There we go. Let's click them all. Don't want to break anything. Dismiss the messages, and that was the week that was beginning the July the 17th. So that's us from Regarding Office 365. Thanks for tuning in, and like and subscribe and comment, etc., etc. Follow us on YouTube, particularly YouTube, because I'm getting a bit tired of seeing that 20 character ugly looking URL. I want to be able to make that look attractive. Maybe I'm going to try and push that out there and get more people to really have a look and follow that along. And I'm just going to lower my standards and just ask for subscribers from anyone who's interested. But yeah, come and join us on our Facebook page as well. Read our stories at reoffice365.com, and we'll catch you again next week. Thank you.